To everyone who's ever told anyone with a dream they can't, this video's for you.
Every iconic brand started with a founder that focused on a key principle to create something legendary.
You're not in it for the money?
I don't think anyone at the company is in it for the money.
If today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today?
Anyone working on a big vision is going to get called crazy, even if you end up right.
I've studied these principles for the last 15 years to build a business and brand that's created more wealth, influence, and freedom than I ever could have imagined. In this video, I'm going to break down the 7 core principles so you can stop playing small and start building your empire. The first and most important principle of building an iconic personal brand: consistency. Casey Neistat went and filmed a vlog for 800 days straight, filming, editing, putting the storytelling together every single day in the same 24 hours that you and I have. That is insane levels of consistency. And here's the math behind it all. If you go and you put in 100 reps, and with each one of those reps, you get 10% better. By the 100th rep, how much better do you think you are? No, not 1,000 times better. Not even 5,000 times better. You're 13,800 times better by that 100th rep. This is the magic of compounding. And this is the math you sign up for when you're consistent. I know when I first got started building my personal brand, I just focused on creating writing that I was proud of 1,000 times. Now, fast forward, I've created a brand that has over 3 million people around it. Truthfully, this is not even what I was after day one. I just wanted to be ruthlessly consistent every single day for years. And I knew that at the end of the day, the score would take care of itself. And so when you go and you're building your iconic brand, focus on decades, not years. Pick a craft that you genuinely would be excited to do for the next 10 years and then just stick to it. Every day, do the thing and don't break the chain.
And the 3 of us decided to start the company. Frankly, I had no idea how to do it. And nor did they. None of us knew how to do anything.
I think one of my great advantages is that I have very low expectations.
Jensen Huang was sitting down with some Stanford students, and he said this about suffering.
Most of the Stanford graduates have very high expectations. People with very high expectations have very low resilience. And unfortunately, resilience matters in success.
In 1995, Nvidia almost went out of business. Fast forward to 2025, and it was the first $4 trillion company in the world. It was this level of sticking with it, even when no one believed in the company. Hell, it was a video game software company. Very few saw the potential for this to become the most valuable company in the world. But Jensen Huang, stuck with it through thick and thin, even mortgaging his house. And it was this level of suffering that led to the resilience necessary to become this successful. I've experienced this in my own life. Looking back over 14 years ago, I was working 80 hours a week in my first business. It hurt like hell, but it was all this pain building my first company that forced me to go and find a better way, because I knew how I was building, it wasn't sustainable. Because in those deepest challenges in life are the kernel to genius. And this is the pain and suffering that's necessary to go and build your iconic brand.
To this day, I use the phrase pain and suffering inside our company with great glee. Boy, this is going to cause a lot of pain and suffering. And I mean that in a happy way, because you want to refine the character of your company.
It's currently October 4th, 2015. At the time I'm recording this video, I have 8,000 subscribers. So whenever you see this, compare these numbers to whatever I have when you watch this.
MrBeast is notorious for thinking insanely long-term about any project he takes. Every single video that Jimmy puts out, he bets the farm each and every time. People think he's nuts, a borderline addicted gambler, but it's this level of obsession around the craft. Not the results, not the numbers, not the money, but the craft itself that separates Jimmy from every other YouTuber.
Like I said, I think one of my greatest superpowers is my obsession, and I think some people would view that as a weakness, but if you just think about solving problems 3 times more than everyone else, like you're bound to come up with different solutions.
Jimmy had 20 subs in 2012 and 15,000 subs in 2015. These are humble numbers. You can just imagine how obsessed MrBeast was. That obsession, it didn't compound linearly, it compounds exponentially. With each rep, he's getting 50% better, 20% better, betting all the chips, going all in every time. Now, the reality is that obsession is contagious. In the world of building iconic personal brands, every single day there's thousands of people starting on the different platforms. And a level of obsession will set you apart. You can imagine going and choosing to either build on X, LinkedIn, YouTube, or Instagram. And if you just approach this as some, side hobby, a thing you're just gonna dabble in, you'll probably just get lost in the noise. That said, if you really go and obsess around a single format, on a single platform, and making it the best in the world, this is how you set yourself apart. And you don't need to think about something insane. Just a few years back, after being in nature, had thought of, I'm gonna go and start handwriting different images around concepts that I think will be helpful for founders. I just started obsessing around, drawing out these different concepts and then sharing them on platforms like LinkedIn. Sure enough, almost overnight, these concepts were shared thousands and thousands of times. In 1 month, I grew by over 110,000 followers on LinkedIn. And not because I was seeking to do that, but because I was just obsessed around making these images that I thought would be really useful. And so, what's your obsession? What's that thing that, many people would think is weird, but that you're really into? And how do you go to the nth degree to become the best at it in the world? This insatiable drive, this obsession around your craft is what's gonna help you separate your iconic personal brand from everything else out there. Rick Rubin teaches us that iconic brands aren't built by guessing the market, they're built by creating what you love. Rick Rubin's produced albums from everyone from Johnny Cash to Kanye West. It's all with this one principle.
The audience comes last.
How can that be? Now, for a lot of people, that sounds like creativity suicide. Aren't you building for an audience? Well, the answer, sure, is they're part of the equation, but the most important part of the equation is you. It's your taste, your intuition, your judgment. And inevitably, when you get too caught up in what people think, you lose the true essence of what you're trying to build. And if you're looking to create an iconic brand, it's in that essence, the depth, that the beauty and the originality exist. And so when you're looking to be creative, you gotta block out the audience and you gotta focus on the craft and the product at hand. I know when I was first starting to build, my own brand online, I was obsessed around building this more soulful approach to entrepreneurship. And some people told me, Matt, this stuff's too woo-woo, or I don't even think anyone cares about this. But I ignored every single one of those people because I knew that this stuff was true to me. These are the practices that had helped me separate myself over the previous decade. And it was stuff that I didn't see anyone else talking about online. You don't need to sell your soul. You don't need to go and burn out. You can lean into your unique advantage, and separate yourself from the pack. When you ignore the audience, you give yourself an ability to sort through your own weirdness. And oftentimes, it's in that search that you find who you truly are. As we all know, one of the most important parts of any brand that we come to know and love that's iconic is that it's authentic, right? It's truly you. This is what comes from the weirdness, from that exploration, and from actually ignoring the end audience.
Well, the audience doesn't know what they want. The audience only knows what's come before.
Now, you may know Michael Jordan as the superstar he became and the founder of what's now a $6 billion brand empire. But he was cut from his high school basketball team. Cut. You can imagine the heartbreak there. When he went and accepted the Hall of Fame award from the NBA, he went and gave this speech.
Yeah, that means I have to do whatever I have to do. We're gonna win, no matter how you look at it.
Michael Jordan had an insatiable competitiveness. He used the fuel of other competitors going and chirping him or telling him he couldn't do it, and he took that personally.
That's all I needed. That's all I needed for him to do that, and it became personal with me.
And he didn't take it personally and just let it go and demotivate him. He actually used that as fuel to come back 10 times stronger. Now, when you look at your own career, when I look at mine, right, there's been so many times where I've had to go and apply this delusional self-belief to get over massive challenges. When I was 21, my first business was raided by the government. I had no idea what I was gonna do. I could be fined up to $1 million and put in jail for a year. I had enough delusional self-belief in myself to go, you know what? I'm gonna go and email 3,000 people over 48 hours, and if I let enough people know about this situation, something's gotta give. After 3 days, it was trending on Twitter in Canada, and 1 week later, we got the only exemption of its kind to operate a business like BitMaker.
26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed.
Jiro Ono has been making sushi in a subway station for 70 years. And after all those years of seeking out the best ingredients and practicing every day of the week, he tells people that he still hasn't perfected rice. Now, people could think this is crazy, but this is the delusional belief in mastery that creates iconic brands. You know, most people think because they've done something for 3 or 5 years that they become great, but real mastery comes from doing things for 20 years, 40 years. And what I think about with all of this is this idea of everyday retirement, of focusing on something that's really in your calling. Oftentimes in life, you know, the success that you're looking for doesn't come from becoming obsessed around the metrics. It comes from being obsessed around the practice. When I went and got started on YouTube as an example, I wasn't focused on views, engagement, or getting to 100,000 subscribers. I was focused on mastering the craft of cinematography, of lighting, of sound, of becoming confident on camera. Because Lord knows in those early days, I had no idea what I was doing. It was from this dedication to the mastery and the love of just becoming a little bit better every single time that's allowed me to go and stand out on this platform. And so, you know, that mastery, right, is what's gonna separate you from the rest. Because when a bunch of amateurs are just going and bragging about the 6 months they've spent doing something, you're gonna build up decades of experience and still consider yourself a student of the game.
Technology and humanity.
What a computer is to me is it's the most remarkable tool.
Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone.
When Steve Jobs was shown different prototypes of the first iPhone from Jony Ive, it had 3 buttons on it. And Steve said it needed to be a lot more simple. And so they went back to the drawing board and came back with a phone with 1 button on it. And Steve said, still too many buttons. Sure enough, they went back to the drawing board and came back with a buttonless interface. And these were in the days of BlackBerry and, you know, Razor flip phones. But Steve was obsessed with simplicity. This didn't just translate through their products, right? It was in their ads as well. Simply drawing, you know, different kind of comparisons between Apple being this new and cool company and then Microsoft being this nerdy old school thing that was stale, right? Just simple comparisons that people could remember. You know, Steve was obsessed around simplicity. And insanely simple is something that's also benefited me in my own life. At the end of the day, I find when I'm going into any week, there are thousands of things I could get done across the portfolio of online companies that I run. But each day I reflect on what are the 3 things I can get done today? Not 30, not 100, 3. And then every single day I wake up and go from top to bottom through those core 3 tasks. And simplicity isn't just about what you're saying yes to. It's being comfortable saying no to 97% of things so you can say hell yes to the 3% that are actually going to move the needle forward for you. Insanely simple focus is also about honing in the signal and then cutting out the noise. Steve Jobs was notorious for ignoring customer feedback, surveys, and focus groups. He preferred much more to lean into his own product intuition, relying on, you know, that quote from Henry Ford, which is, if you'd asked what people had wanted, they would have said a faster horse. You know, sometimes when you just rely on everyone else's opinion, you get clouded. But when you listen to that like inner voice that you have and trust that signal, you're able to distill things down to one simple thing.
We have a chance, if we stay focused and choose wisely, to really continue to impact people's lives in some small way for the better.
The real iconic brands go deep, not just wide. Icons aren't born, they're built. And with these 7 core principles, you can build your iconic brand today. Now, if you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe and go and check out this video on how you can go and build a profitable personal brand.